As a preface to doing an update for our multi-DVD vintage recording collection videos, I want to do a real quick overview. We can normally do a tour of our collection in about 4 hours, believe it or not. If we go into some detail, we're probably looking at 6 hours. What I would like to do is very quickly show you the collection, say a little bit about why we did do some of the things, and bring it up to date with all the things that have happened in the last couple of years. First portable recorder. First mono recorder that I had. First stereo recorder used at the Alpine High School, the Sony 300. So as I get started on the things that I wanted to have in the collection that I'd used, this one is the very first as far as a serious recorder that I used to get started working with musicians. It is a web core. My parents went in half with me on my graduation present. I took it around, recorded bands. For the first year or two I recorded the Sol Ross band and then moved to a Sony 600 to do that on location. Web core Squire. First stereo sound on sound, sound with sound. This is the recorder, the Roberts 330, that was used by the Believers manager, Bill Spears, that resulted in my working with Granger Hunt and the Believers to develop their music, which got me into doing recording. Replaced the web core with the Sony 600. It went with me on college tours and I did all kinds of albums later. Originally we used a Shure 556, and then we also, as Electro Voice 665. The Sony TC263 was a deck that I used for playback with the Sony 600 as I was duplicating tapes or doing editing. Sony 260, this was probably the first unit that provided playback on location. We also had an Ampex 860 during this period of time. Here you see the 860 and the 600 in a KVLF radio remote. Moved up to the Sony 630, which also provided playback on location. First high-speed wind recorder, the Concertone 800. The Sony TC580 provided reverse recording. This machine later ended up as a duplicating unit at Austin Custom Records. I carried an ad around to the Sony TC777, professional unit that I aspired to have, but I never could afford. It also had a mixer that matched, that had XLR connectors, and also had a stereo speaker system, which enabled it to play fantastic sound. Good wine, good management of tape. So here's the clip art that got me started in doing the eBay collections, and that unit is in the collection now. Came from a pawn shop in Arizona. This is the Ampex 600 with the 620 speaker system that I used in Sol Ross State University. This was taken on band tours. This has done all the college recitals, and I also used the Sony 600 because it was stereo. This unit was not stereo. So then in the late 70s we moved up quite a bit. The Teac A3340 and the Model 2 mixer with the bridge, and really took us forward in trying to work with musicians. And again, we tried to do everything. We had all the remotes using a JBL speaker system. The mastering unit was the A3300 SX, had the half-track mastering designation. And during this period of time we were using the Teac ME120 in pairs. This is the Sony electric condenser ECM22 microphone that we used originally with the Teac. The Roberts 1000 was probably one recorder that changed the collection, because it went from something that was quite ordinary to something that was quite extraordinary. This unit had 3 motors, would play in forward and reverse, had fast wind. Once you raised the head cover, you also had a black and white video head, and by rethreading the tape you'd have the ability to record black and white video. This came out in 1970. They advertised that had you had this recorder, you would have been able to record the moon landing. Another very key part of the collection, in addition to tape recorders and microphones, is mixers. And this Tascam Model 5, or Teac Model 5, came from high-end lighting systems in Austin. They'd done a custom module on it, and this became our primary mixer for a while. Interestingly, at the same time, when I was working as a chief engineer at Austin Custom Records, we had the Series 70 Teac 8-track, which was really a great recorder.
Just when you think it's all over.
And again, as I'm showing the collection here, now I'm running into a Fostex, which here we were talking about taking those 8 tracks and putting them on 1/4 inch tape. This is of course 1/2 inch tape on the Tascam.
Then I would not have found you.
This whole unit comes off and becomes a remote, and it's actually got an incredibly long cord for a remote. We have the Fostex G16S, putting 16 tracks on 1/2 inch tape. In 1966, Teac released the A4010S. The unit in our collection was brought over from Vietnam by my wife Chris's ex-husband. In 1968, they came out with the A2340, which was the first simul-sync deck. And if you notice the chrome knobs on this was an early version of that particular model. They also had a 3340 with that same look. Interestingly, they then released a quadraphonic deck called the TCA42 in 1972. This unit did not have the cell sync switches until they released the TCA43 in 1973. At that point, they did place the simul-sync switches on top of the head cover. This is the unit we have in our collection. Teac also moved up to the A3440, which was a newer version and a much better built unit. We have the remote controls too for these units. We have about 80% actually running well. As far as mastering goes, Teac then came out with the 25-2 and the 35-2. This is the 35-2 used for mastering. And again, as we tried to build the collection, we tried to find early models that were made of recorders that would help musicians. We also tried to find later ones. And then we tried for some of the significant manufacturers like Teac and Sony and a couple others that we'd get some of the interim recorders as well. Staying in the vein of recorders that I worked with, this is the classic Teac 80-8, produced an album, Dan and Dave Live at the Back Room. DX9 unit underneath. This is working. Has a original recording of Willie Nelson done at the Riverbend Baptist Church right after his IRS thing. So we were really excited to get this, which has individual channels and allows us to listen to the sound really as it was originally done. Again, the 88 classic unit. Had it in the back of a van outside the back room in Austin, Texas to do the album that you see across the way there, which was Dan and Dave Live at the Back Room. So you can see also we have the display set up so that you can really see the equipment, see some of the documentation around it, see other things that are interesting to the recording. Below that, while we're right here, you'll also see that we have an example of the leases using videotape. 8-track recording, and below that classic Teac cassette duplication unit. One of the first recorder companies in the US was Brush. This is the only unit I've seen like this, and this is basically called the Brush Professional, and I'll talk more about Brush in just a few minutes. The classic Pioneer 909, and it does play in reverse and record both directions. Just got a gorgeous sound. And I guess you'd call it its little brother, which is the RT707. Most of the systems are running through Teac Model 1s, which is a nice transfer mixer. It's clean. A mixer, a Teac mixer, which looks a lot like the Ampex AX10. We got a graphic equalizer by Teac. Dolby noise reduction unit. And below that we have cassette recorders. One is a 3-channel with a sync for slideshows, and the bottom one is a 4-channel recorder. We didn't originally have cassette recorders in the collection. We used to take this on location. This Marantz 5420 provided pan controls. It had a limiter built in. Ampex AG440 monotrack. An Ampex AG440. This unit also is working very well. And you'll see there is an Ampex AM10 back behind the AG440. And down below the AG440 is a Magna Cord 1024. Magna Cord was a robust professional recorder that was used in a lot of radio stations.
News service now bent on tourists. Just last month, Over My Head finished a 14-week stay on the pop charts. That's Fleetwood Mac's first American hit single ever, and it's taken their last album into the top 3, a full 8 months after its release.
And this is a unit that has a tape on it from the Rolling Stone, and we've tried to do that too to provide playback of music and other historical things that are of significance in the museum collection. Another major manufacturer was Crown, and Crown turned out this Crown Professional. And Crown was founded by a man who was originally a missionary and wanted to build more robust portable tape recorders, and started the Crown line and ended up building quite a significant line of recorders. This is a working studio, and you see everything here, including our security system. The board we're actually using to play back a lot of our stuff now is the Tascam DM3200. Again, Model 1s that we're using to sort out the different audio signals from the vintage equipment. We have a duck quarter 1140. To the left of duck quarter, mics that we've added. We have some very classic, both Electro Voice 666, the RCA 77DX. Got some other RCAs here. Beautiful Crown. I mentioned earlier about the missionary starting the Crown Recording Company. Mario Alonso. This is a classic Sony also. This is the C37. And this is a version that has transistors rather than the tube amp. This is a microphone I did not actually know existed for a long time. This is a Calrad. Calrad made a lot of very cheap $5.95 microphones. In fact, we've resold a whole bunch of them through the collection to raise money. But this one's the VM12, and this is a pretty good knockoff of a ribbon microphone. Sounds good, very heavy compared to the others. And then I love the Pioneer. This was the early Pioneer professional recorder, and this is the Akai GX400D-SS. Very beautiful machine, especially with the blue meters. Down below these two is Viking, one of the early recording companies who did consumer models and then later was bought out by Teac. And to the left of that is another recorder that I missed earlier that we used to have and used to use for dubbing, because this would give us a source and tape. Up here on top we have the Ruhr 4400 report monitor, which is a very neat on-location recorder. This is also a Ruhr mixer beside it. And again, here's the Teac 35-2 working as a mastering machine. Turn that off and play the B77 at the bottom. Trumpet my wife had restored for me as a birthday present. And then you move around here and you got the remotes for the Revox. And we have some Shure microphones over here, beautiful microphone. This is the Akai GX747 in black. I love this unit. I love what they've done with the controls. It's a beautiful sounding unit. Again, we've put a variety of music on these guys. You're wondering what's playing back right here. This is actually an Altec Seville system that I've actually had from the 60s. Incredibly beautiful pair of speakers that are part of the sound system here. Again, microphones, and coming up to a really cool Ampex 2-track.
Recorded tapes for sale, just like ordinary disc records, offering music lovers an even better sound which only tape could capture.
We have the other Altec speaker here on the left, and up above that is the classic RS1700. And here's another comment on our collection. We have had 6 of these, and the whole point was trying to find a machine that was working and looking perfect, as well as the dust cover. And we have an incredible collection of dust covers. To the right of the Techniques unit is the classic Ampex 351. We restored this guy. It works great. It has both the Ampex original 351 amplifier, and it also has Ron Newdall's Accurate Sound Company amplifier. Ron rebuilt a lot of the Ampex equipment, bought out a lot of the Ampex equipment, and sold a lot of that to Mexico and South America. The unit has its own remote control down here.
It was good. Oh, baby. Well, I want to love you like I love you should. You're fine. So kind. I can tell this world that you might.
Hearing this through the DM3200. You're also listening to this in the studio through a JBL center speaker and two Sonys, which are really unique. If you can see it, they've got the square speakers in them. They sound really cool. Nothing sounds like it. The Tascam BRT20. BRT has a video sync track, which is what the T stands for, and this is a really neat transfer machine for us because we can do half track, quarter-inch transfers and digitize.
Give me a kiss to fill a dream on, and by a man
And once again, this is controllable by a remote here by the mixers. At the very end on this wall, we have, first of all, the Teac Tascam 122 MK3, which is a great cassette mastering recorder. The Atari MX 5050 BQ2 is a 4-track recorder, and again, this is really useful for us for making transfers. A lot of our early recordings, as I'd mentioned before, were made on 4-track Teacs, and a lot of the musicians worked with these machines. This was really a godsend for creating new music and being able to cell sync and that kind of thing. But this unit is incredibly well built, works well, actually has a tape on it right now. And that's sung by an artist we used to manage, and now that Chris actually does book some, Tracy Lynn. And here's some other memorabilia we have on the wall, which we did a record from Rich Michaels. We also, I was working with a producer, Peter Butcher, who unfortunately passed away in the 90s. He had the promotional work for Leslie Gore's It's My Party. This is a remake by Dave Stewart and Barbara Gaskin that actually stayed at #1 in England for quite a few weeks and made it onto the US charts as well. We'd also like to let you know that we are working very hard to establish a permanent public museum in Austin, Texas that would preserve this equipment, as well as look at what sound technology has impacted in the areas of music, broadcasting, film, video, and science. Please take a look at our Museum of Magnetic Sound Recording at this link. We would appreciate your support to help make this happen. Thank you. So this was just a very quick tour to give you a taste of what we have in the collection. We do have a 3 DVD set out right now that captures more detailed information on a lot of the collection. You can go to the Reel2ReelTexas.com website and you'll be able to order the DVD set. Thank you for watching this quick tour overview. This is, of course, part 1 of 3.